Okay, today we're going to learn how to duct seal the K Lund way. So the purpose behind this is your trunk line's all done, and what we're trying to do is we're sealing up all the gaps and cracks that air is going to leak out of. And we're going to do that and make it look really clean and neat, clean and neat, clean and neat, while also making sure that everything's sealed up and we're not leaking. It starts with the way that you load your brush with duct sealer. What we don't want to do is just dip your brush in there and have duct sealer all over the whole thing. So instead, what you want to do is get a little bit and put it on the edge and kind of get it on like in a clump like that. And then what you'll do is you just kind of spread that out along the joint that you're sealing, and then while using kind of nice smooth brush strokes like you're painting a fence, seal up all the gaps and cracks.
How you loaded that up on the, do it slow on the other side.
I'm always cleaning it off like the edges of the brush so that it doesn't end up when I'm brushing this, so you don't have a big glob ending up on the outside of that. And then putting it back on the edge of the brush. And then I'll kind of try and, because right here is what we're trying to seal. The joint of your drive going up that's connecting the end cap to this piece of duct, that's where the air is going to leak. So what we're trying to do is load the duct sealer into that gap right there. So then on this is an end cap, but if you look up here, you can see gaps right there in the corners. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill those up. Okay, here's one thing that I want to touch on that is going to save your gloves and everything from getting all duct sealered all over. When you're done with this, don't just shove the brush down in there like that, because it's going to fall and you're going to get duct sealer all over the edge of the brush. Instead of doing that, slap it right there against the side so you keep everything out of here. It's going to keep your clothes cleaner, it's going to keep your gloves cleaner. And the other thing that we don't want to do is make sure you're not wiping duct sealer on the walls or anywhere that's not the duct. Now, on these two joints here, we've got to seal the top as well as the sides and the bottom. So when doing this, I'm going to start with the top and do the top first. The most important part where you're going to leak the most air is right in the corners where the drives bend over the top. So make sure you get those really good. And then just pull it through. Just really keep in mind that what you're trying to seal is this gap. So that's why I'm kind of loading it into that gap and then smoothing it all out. And I'm not really putting a lot of pressure on the brush. Just nice and easy, filling in all the gaps. Okay, there's an example of a hole in the duct sealer, something that you don't want to have, so you want to make sure that you're completely filling that gap that we're trying to fill, so that, again, we don't get any air leakage. A lot of cities and areas are starting to do duct leakage testing, where you're only allowed a certain percentage of air leakage. So it's really important that we're getting these as tight as we possibly can. Another thing to touch on is you're just sealing the drives, the joint between two pieces of duct. We don't need to seal the hangers that are supporting and holding the duct up to the joist. So just the drives and the S's, that is a joint of two pieces of duct sealing together. Okay, this sealing the plenum and the coil is probably the most important area that, number one, looks clean, but also is sealed completely, because this is where you're going to lose the most air if you have holes in your duct sealer or you're not sealed up completely. Also, this is one area that is never going to get covered up by a drop ceiling or anything. This will always be visible to a homeowner or builder, or anybody will see this. So it's important to make this look good. It's important to make everything look good, but especially the plenum and the coil. So same thing, we're trying to seal that gap between the coil and the plenum. So same thing as before, I'm just going to try and pack the duct sealer into that gap and then just smooth it out. So here on this back joint, the one from the furnace to the coil, it's easier to seal that before you put the coil on, like out here, and seal that and then push the furnace and coil back in. This one of the plenum, you can't really do that, so you just got to reach back in there as best you can from both sides. You always want to do, so whatever side the return air drop is on the furnace, you always want to seal the plenum and the coil joint before you put this drop on, otherwise you can't get in between to seal that. Okay, and then the last thing that we got to do to seal up the furnace and coil area is this joint right here on the top of the furnace where the coil sits on top of the furnace. We're going to use clear silicone to seal that. So we're just going to pump some into there. And then just use your finger to smooth it out and push it down into the gaps. Now you know how to seal duct the Lund way.